What's up YouTube, how you doing? This is Mr. Tybox123 and in this video I'm going to be bringing you a direct comparison between this, the Samsung Galaxy Note 2 and this, the Sony Xperia Z. So guys, I thought I'd bring you this comparison of these two phones because I genuinely believe that these two phones are the best two phones on the market today. The Sony Xperia Z has just come out and I've had it for just a few days, but I've been so impressed with pretty much everything about it. And then we've got the Galaxy Note 2, and I was a fairly late comer to the actual usage of the Galaxy Note 2, but now that I've got it, I've kind of fallen in love with it. And in fact, just before I got the Xperia Z, this really did become my main daily driver, leaving the iPhone 5 back at home, which is something that I've never even considered doing before. But I really do believe that with the actual specifications and the usability of this phone, along with how far Android's come, especially with things like Project Butter and Jelly Bean, this has actually become my daily driver. Now, the issue I've got now is, do I really want to be carrying around two 5+ inch phones with me? Now, I always do have two phones, one for a certain business and one for personal, but do I really want to be carrying around two 5-inch phones? So what I'm going to do in this video is compare the two and tell you my thoughts as to how they kind of compare to one another. So first of all, let's start off with the actual design and the build quality. Now, the Xperia Z, when I got it out of the box, I was not expecting anything near the build quality that I actually got with the Xperia Z. I remember the Xperia S build quality in it was good, but it wasn't even close to the build quality of the Xperia Z. This thing's got this beautiful kind of glass pearlescent back. It's got really nice round quality corners, and just everything about it screams premium. And then with the Galaxy Note 2, now, the build quality I think is good. It never breaks, you don't really get any issues with the actual build quality. But in terms of the materials used, I don't think it's quite on a par with the Xperia Z. So for me, in the build quality, not so much the build quality department, but the actual quality of materials used, I would say that the Xperia Z has a more premium feel to it. Now, a lot of people may not actually see that as a plus. They may look at the glass back on this and say, well, if I drop it, it's going to be easier to break. These Galaxy phones are pretty much completely robust. I mean, I've had a lot of these phones, the Galaxy S3, the Galaxy Note 2, and it really doesn't matter what you do with them. They are very much a robust phone. So, you know, twos and fro's there in the design department. I think aesthetically, the Xperia Z definitely looks better than the Galaxy Note 2. I think the build quality is about the same, but I think the materials used and the way they've put them all together, again, is better on the Xperia Z. Now, also in terms of dimensions, the Xperia Z, let's just turn these off, is actually a fair bit smaller than the Galaxy Note 2, and one of the reasons for that is the fact that the Galaxy Note 2 has a 5.5-inch display as against the 5-inch display on the Xperia Z. And in fact, on the Xperia Z, the display is made to feel a bit smaller as well because of the software buttons that we've got at the bottom of the phone. So that kind of reduces the overall usable screen size by just a fraction more, bringing it down to maybe a kind of 4.8-inch phone. So the actual screen size on this is more similar when you actually take into account those software buttons to the Galaxy S3 than it is to the Galaxy Note 2. Now, in terms of the actual screens themselves, I actually think the screen on the Xperia Z is quite a bit superior to that on the Note 2. And the main reason for that is the resolution. This is a full 1080p display on this little 5-inch phone, whereas on the Samsung Galaxy Note 2, it's a 720p display, meaning that this one has about a 267 ppi and this one has about 441, which is absolutely phenomenal. And when you're browsing web pages and you're fitting them all into one page and they've got a lot of text, you can really tell the difference in terms of the PPI on the Xperia Z as against that of the Samsung Galaxy Note 2. Now, in terms of the actual quality of the display, again, I would have to go with the Xperia Z. I've been totally blown away by this. It's got the Sony Bravia 2 engine, and I think that makes a huge difference. I find white's whiter, black's blacker. I find the entire experience, the viewing experience, just a lot more dynamic, a lot more contrasty on the Xperia Z than I do on the Note 2. But that could actually just be down to personal kind of preference. The Galaxy Note 2 screen by no means is a rubbish screen. It's a fantastic screen. You get completely immersed in whatever you're doing on it, and it's just a beautiful screen, along with, you know, the size, along with the clarity, the resolution, everything about it is a fantastic screen. But for me, the Xperia Z just about takes the biscuit. Well, obviously in terms of resolution it just beats it, that's just a fact, but actually in terms of the quality of the screen as well, I find it just that little bit better. Now, in terms of the actual thickness of the phones, the Galaxy Note 2 is about 2mm thicker than the Xperia Z. You can see they're just about, they look about the same when you look at them like that, but because of the curved back on the Galaxy Note 2, it makes it look very much slightly thinner than it actually is. But the Xperia Z is just that little bit thinner than the Galaxy Note 2. Now let's just move forward into some other features of the phones. On the back here, we've got some cameras, both of which are capable of recording 1080p at a full 30 frames per second. We've also got the front-facing cameras, which again are full 1080p, capable of recording 30 frames per second. With the Sony Xperia Z, we have got a huge 13 megapixel camera on the back, and we've got a 2.2 megapixel camera on the front. The Galaxy Note 2 has got an 8 megapixel camera on the back and a 1.9 megapixel camera on the front. Now, in terms of the functionality of the cameras, they've both got great functionality, loads and loads of features. But one feature I really do like that no other phone actually has at the moment is the HDR video on the Sony Xperia Z. And that, along with the megapixel increase and just the general slightly higher standard in terms of video, audio and photo output, I think the Sony Xperia Z is just slightly better in that department, especially with that huge 13 megapixel sensor and the HDR video. That's a really nice touch from Sony, the HDR video. Now, one thing that the Galaxy Note 2 has that the Xperia Z doesn't is it has the S Pen. Now, a lot of devices, mobile devices that were around long before we got these fantastic smartphones, did actually try and use these styluses, and the iPhone really kind of rubbished the idea of a stylus, and they haven't been around ever since the iPhone came into existence. But Samsung have brought these back in their Note devices, and I've got to say I find it quite a lot of fun. I never really use it for anything that requires it, but sometimes I just like to navigate my way around the operating system with it. Maybe I've even got gloves on, for example, or sometimes you just like to sit there and just draw and doodle and, you know, do just certain things with that S Pen, and it makes it quite a lot of fun. It just adds a little extra into the phone. So I think that's a nice feature that the Note 2 has, and is not to be underestimated just to how useful and fun the S Pen is on the Galaxy Note 2. Now, for me, and the reason that I would probably pick the Galaxy Note 2 over and above any other phone on the market today is battery life. I've been thrilled to pieces with the battery life on the Galaxy Note 2. It's got a huge 3100 milliamp hour battery, and when you take the back off, the thing is absolutely huge. In the Sony Xperia Z, it's got a 2330 milliamp hour battery, and it lasts nowhere near as long as the Galaxy Note 2 does. For me, I just love having a long battery life. You don't have to worry about recharging it during the day. And with these smartphones, I've just got so used to having to recharge probably at least once or twice a day in order to get full usage out of them throughout that period, that the Galaxy Note 2 really has kind of blown me away with the fact that I can literally use this thing almost for a full 2 days. I easily get a whole full 1 day out of it, but sometimes if I've not used it quite as much, or I've been using it in a different way that's not so heavy on the battery, I can actually get almost 2 full days worth of battery usage out of the Samsung Galaxy Note 2, and I think that that is absolutely fantastic. I've been saying for a long time, I wish they'd stop making these phones so small add an extra couple of millimeters here and there and give us a battery that lasts a full day. It's my one gripe with all of these devices. You know, they seem to squeeze out these extra 0.5 millimeters and millimeters. Don't they realize that if they added an extra 2 millimeters and filled that with battery and gave us a 4,000 milliamp hour battery that lasted for 2 days, it would make the phone 10 times better. But anyway guys, that's my rant over midway through this little comparison. A couple of other nice features that the Galaxy Note 2 has. You've got the split screen functionality on the Note 2, so you can like basically watch a video and browse, or you can use 2 applications essentially at the same time, and that's really great for doing certain things. Maybe you're in the middle of a video and you actually want to surf the web for a question, or you want to send a text message or something like that. You can actually do that on the Note 2. The Xperia Z doesn't have that in its abilities because of the TouchWiz OS on top of the Android operating system on this. On the Sony one, they do modify it slightly, but the modifications aren't quite as sophisticated as that on the Galaxy devices. Now, in terms of overall performance, I did a benchmark comparison between these two just the other day. The Galaxy Note 2 has a 1.6 gigahertz quad-core processor, a Xenos processor, and then in the Xperia Z, we've got a 1.5 gigahertz quad-core processor, and that's a Qualcomm processor. Now, in terms of overall experience, they're both pretty much exactly the same. There really isn't, I can't pick any difference between the two in terms of performance, and the benchmark statistics seem to back that up as well. So in terms of performance, both got 2 gigabytes of RAM as well, and I say they come in fairly equal. Both of these phones come in at about £500 each, or about $700 in the US off contract. They both have 4G LTE, they both have NFC, they both have Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and pretty much everything else you would expect, and they both come stock with 4.1.2 Jelly Bean. So most of the statistics and specifications on these phones are actually fairly similar. There are some distinguishing points between the two. I say the screen on the Sony and actually the build quality and the aesthetics slightly overwhelm that of the Galaxy Note 2, but then that with the S Pen, especially that amazing battery and also that slightly larger screen, give the Galaxy Note 2 some quite actual decent advantages over the Xperia Z. So overall, that's the difference between the two. That's how I kind of see them sitting against one another. Which one would I pick as my daily driver? Personally, I have to go with the Galaxy Note 2, and that is purely because of the battery life. I actually prefer the aesthetics on the Xperia Z. I prefer the screen. I prefer quite a few things about the Xperia Z. The fact that it's also waterproof, that I neglected to mention earlier, and dust proof is a great little feature. But that battery life for me and that slightly bigger screen, they for me make the Galaxy Note 2 the winner. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. I hope I didn't talk on too long. Please do hit that like button if you liked it, and I will see you guys all in the next video. See ya.